Welcome back to the LCS Proving Grounds and TSM Academy versus Zeus Gaming, game number 1. Fire for Zeus Gaming. They were able to sweep that one away.
Yeah, and I hope you all can hear me now because it's going to be a great time for our second game. I think it's really surprising to a lot of our viewers that Zeus Gaming not only beat TSM Academy, but beat them in a resounding fashion. There was not really a whole lot in that game where we were saying, it's like, oh yeah, TSM is looking really strong here. I think they have a real chance of winning, but you know, it all starts with the draft. We're going to have to really look at it once again as TSM has selected blue side for the second game in a row, and that does mean that they're going to try and run it back in a lot of ways. Now again, gotta mention it, Seraphine, strongest champion on the patch still, right? You have a lot of opportunity to go for it. They were able to get the rel, but it's surprising to me that neither team really went for it. And as we go through some of these replays, we can kind of see some of the things about these compositions that went in favor of that went in favor of Zeus throughout this entire thing, right? They were able to consistently move around the map. You are very telegraphed with a lot of plays you want to make with Renekton, Nidalee, and Set. And Zeus were able to respond to them almost every single time.
Yeah, Zeus just had TSM's number in a game where we felt like TSM should have been having the better half of that early game. You can see this play out more and more. Zeus are very smart when it came to disengaging at the right times, not overstaying their welcome. You can see that with RBM, just clippity-cloppy on out of there. And even when TSM were able to get advantages, you see it with this play as well. Zeus respond perfectly.
Yeah, as I'm watching like more of these plays, you're starting to see that there are actually a number of times where Zeus aren't pressing their buttons as well as they could be, right? They're not necessarily making all the good mechanical plays, and that's just kind of going to show like how good a lot of their macro play is in comparison to TSM in this last game. You don't need to click your buttons good if you're in the right place at the right time. And they do that over and over again. And I can't wait to see what kind of composition they're going to be going for in this next game, because it can emphasize their things. Like, we know that despite the fact that this was not the best mechanical showing from them, they are strong mechanical players. They are really good at taking a lot of these fights. In particular, I want to highlight Raheen in this regard. He's able to consistently position well. He's able to maximize his damage over and over again. And despite the fact that he dies in your screen like right as I'm pumping him up, that was his second death of the game against a composition that is trying to actively kill him.
Yeah, and, you know, the thing about TSM is, as we head into the second draft of this series, TSM have been a squad that can adapt if given enough of a chance. We saw it with Winthrop. Winthrop had the whole thing where it was the Doxa diff. Doxa was the big member there. TSM started drafting around that. They were able to find the adaptation and take down Winthrop. But again, that's the last team they beat. In the draft, I wasn't really that impressed with it in this very first game. I mean, they allowed the Hecarim to go over to RBM. They allowed the Tristana to go free. And I don't know what happened to Seraphine, but she was somewhere in there, in the champion pool. But,
she had a concert or something. Don't worry about it. Like, the big thing about League of Legends and drafting is all about getting compensation for picks, right? Like, you can get something strong as blue side, but if you have enough champions left up that are really strong, you're giving over 2 really strong champions to your opponents, and this is the kind of opportunity that we have to pay attention to. TSM Academy ended up banning Urgot, Senna, and Thresh in their first rotation last time, and while like none of these are bad bans, I don't think any of these are going to be something that Zeus are likely to pick in their first rotation, right? You're not denying any of these really strong picks in the first set, and all of these champions have things that you can play against them. There is real counterplay to a lot of these champions that oftentimes doesn't exist against champions like Tristana and Hecarim, which were in fact Zeus' first and second picks.
Yeah, I would expect TSM to go for the top lane bans in the second side of the draft, because as we were talking about, it's something where Alorum does like getting that counter pick, and if he's going to go for the counter pick, he's going to take it in round number 2. It needs to change up. You need to take away the Tristana, and maybe to some extent take away the Hecarim, because RBM was beastly.
Yeah, but we're kind of getting to the point, Eric, where just saying, it's like, well, why don't you just ban all of their champions? Why don't you ban everything that Zeus plays? Like, TSM does have to make some meaningful decisions, and I think they came into this game with a plan. We're going to try and win in the mid-game. We're going to try and take these team fights because our lanes are going to be stronger at that point in the game. Unfortunately, now again, very telegraphed as Nidalee on Babip didn't work out. It ended up dying quite a bit. And I think there are other really strong junglers that you could potentially look in this slot, right? There's their second pick. There's still a Volibear up on the table. There's a number of other champions that you can start grabbing that spot. Lilia, I mean, I've heard mixed analysis on Twitter and from different people as to whether or not Lilia is worthwhile to play into Hecarim, but still going to be a strong champion. You still have plenty of things that you can potentially go for. And I feel like TSM were so focused on trying to get this Nidalee Renekton, and they gave way too much over to Zeus.
And I feel like if they do touch up that draft quite a bit and get something that's a little more favorable towards them, then we could possibly see something better from TSM, because you can see the intent of their plays. You can see that they wanted to, you know, set up the dives bottom, set up the dives top, but the execution wasn't quite there, and a lot of it was just because they couldn't pump out that damage fast enough, Joshi.
Yeah, it was. And it's kind of the thing that, you know, we look at and say, on the one hand, Zeus played this really, really well, but this is also kind of what happens when TSM or any team drafts compositions like this Renekton Nidalee. It either looks really, really good because it's stomping everybody and rolling over team fights because both these champions are really strong, or it looks really underwhelming because neither of them got off the ground and they didn't have an opportunity to push things around. Nidalee was 1-5 was the last time I checked the KDA on that champion, and probably ended up being like 1-7 towards the end. So Nidalee never particularly strong this game, but you know, a strong Nidalee, we've all seen how they can take over the game. So the question to me is less, how are you going to draft differently in this game? Because I thought the game plan is okay. It's just a high variance game plan, which is not my style. I prefer low variance. But it's a thing where, how do we find better advantages? We saw where the Hecarim was early on in the game, and we opted in to these dives on opposite sides of the map. Maybe we can opt out of that. Maybe there's a different route we can take in order to punish the Hecarim, take away his jungle, maybe get his Krugs as well early on, maybe force him off. Like, there's a lot of things that can go differently with this exact same draft if TSM wants to run it back.
So my question is going to be, what do you go for on the first pick? Because on the last one, they went for the Rel, and with the Rel, like, yeah, it's a very, very strong champion, but I feel like if you're going to leave power picks like the Hecarim and Tristana up, those should be the things you go for first. So could you see anything different like that? Like, personally, I would like TSM to go for the Tristana. It goes into Cody Sun's champion pool.
I think Tristana's good. I think Seraphine is really good, right? I think the Rel was honestly fine. All of these champions are first pick worthy, provided you ban around it and you're not giving over too much to your opponents. And I think that's the key thing I'm looking at, is I think the Senna and Thresh bans need to change. I think you can pick Rel, you can pick Hecarim, you can pick Udyr, you can pick Tristana, you can pick Seraphine, right? You know, I've just named 5 champions that I think are all good first picks for TSM. But if you're going to be getting over 2 of those to the opponents, you're going to be having a lot more issues later on down the line, just because, you know, League of Legends is not a game where champions are equal in power. You want to make sure you get the good ones.
We saw the first picks that came out of Zeus, Tristana and Hecarim, and we saw the impact that Raheen was able to make, that RBM was able to make, and even that Rhino was able to make on the Gragas. I don't think it's one of the most highly prioritized pick to go after the Gragas, but man, did he make it look good by just giving his team a front line and an engage.
Yeah, and the Imperial mandate to make sure all their damage is going to be amplified throughout the entire thing. So we'll see what happens, right?
You love that item.
I just think it's entertaining, right? Like, it's not something you see on the Gragas very often. But we're going to be jumping into the champion select fairly soon, and I think the big thing that I am going to be paying attention to is, what game plan is TSM going to be going into with this? Are they going to be really focusing on one kind, or are they going to try and react a little bit more to what it is that Zeus is looking to do?
We will see. They're not going to throw away the Urgot ban. They want to keep that one onto Alorum. Kaisa ban comes out of Zeus, so still keeping a close eye on what these first picks are going to be, and it's almost like TSM are running it back. They've gone for the Senna. If they just ban out the Thresh, and it's pretty much the same draft for them.
You can do that. That is a choice you can make. I can't stop you, but I don't think it's a good idea. If they do that exact same thing, right? We're going back to the same thing where there are so many power picks. Red side really wants there to be exactly 3 first pick worthy champions still available in the draft, and currently there are like 5, right? They are very happy to take almost any set as...
Kha'Zix?
Why? This isn't Cyber. Like, Cyber is another player for another team, and he's like this huge Kha'Zix player. Hecarim comes through, there are still powerful junglers. Lilia is a contested pick. There's still the Volibear, which is much stronger now in 11.6 due to his changes in the jungle. But this is what we're saying. You get one really strong pick, two now going over, and you can't, like, I guess you can pick the Volibear. You can give it over to Hanser up in the top lane. But it's not as powerful up in the top lane in terms of just what you can do with it. It's not as powerful now because you know where it's going. It's not a flex pick. And the Xayah coming through, I like it for Cody's son. It really amplifies the fact that he likes to position defensively and keep himself alive through these entire team fights. And we've seen fantastic Xayah plays throughout the tournaments leading up to this. But it does mean that he is going to be kind of self-sufficient while we look at the rest of TSM Academy potentially trying to dive onto Raheem.
Yeah, I'm still like kind of trapped around the whole Kha'Zix ban. Banning a jungler did show that TSM wanted to go for a jungler right away, and they did grab the Hecarim. We had the same first 3 picks that we saw in game number 1, just in a different order this time. Yeah. Rounding out the draft, Zoos are going to go for the Lilia, basically Nidalee but scaling, and yeah, yeah, you pretty much get the same skin.
That's a bold claim. We'll come back to that one later on. But the thing that I'm curious now is where we go from this position, right? We've already identified the first half of the draft. You have not as strong of a front line coming out for Zeus Gaming, but you have some good dive tools from TSM. Kai'Sa, Samira are the typical AD carries you look at to dive with these strong dive compositions, but Xayah, fairly good just because if everybody's diving on your team, you're kind of left alone from the other side. You're not necessarily going to be worried about them trying to counter dive you. Just a quick heads up, I did do a little bit of research. The last time Really Big Mean played Kha'Zix was in January against a new esports. They lost that game, turns out. I really don't like this Kha'Zix ban, and I'm going to stop talking about it because otherwise I'm just going to make myself more and more angry. Because now we got to look at the rest of the draft, right? You got to see how Zoos want to play. Do they want to try this more skirmishy style, or do they want to try this front to back that they had success with last game? And it looks like TSM are trying to limit Zoos from being able to play a skirmish style. They're taking away Darkwing Silas, they're taking away this Lucian, and it means that they are forcing Zoos to go for a blind pick in one of their lanes, and it is going to be Alorum on the side once again after they've protected it from some of its worst matchups at this point in the game.
Yeah, so Sion gets locked in, waiting for 2 more picks to come out of TSM side, and they're going straight for the Nocturne? Interesting pick to come out of TSM.
Okay. I didn't like the Nocturne until I saw the Galio. The Nocturne going up into the top lane isn't necessarily going to be pushing around Sion particularly hard, but between Hecarim and Nocturne, suddenly you have 2 fantastic Galio delivery systems. You have a ton of opportunity to try and get into the backline with this, and now Raheem has real questions asked of him. How are you going to survive all of this dive? Is Zeus going to help you, or are they going to say, nah, Raheem, you're on your own, we're going to try and keep everybody else alive? And now, huge stylistic difference between these 2 teams. TSM are going to try and dive really heavily into Darkwings and Raheem, and there's not that many tools that are super good at protecting these. You have the ultimate coming out from Rhino's Rel, so you just pull everybody back, but they might just be dead before that even has an effect to go off and try and get the peel through. So Zeus is going to be either winning these fights really hard because Azir and Tristana survive, or they're going to lose really hard because they have no damage after these 2 die.
Yeah, Joshi, we were talking about it. TSM like diving. They need more damage on those dives. This brings more damage for those dives. So I'm liking the way TSM are revamping their draft, but I don't want to count Zeus out too much when it comes to dealing with those dives because the Emperor's Divide can do a lot of work. Rocket Jump can do a lot of work, and even Buster Shot can do a lot of work. You can still keep this backline safe, and there's still a very strong front line for Zeus. I think for TSM Academy, it's just all about playing around that mid-game, even a little bit before that, setting up those dives and getting those kills to get you that very, very strong lead, where Zeus can basically do nothing about it other than just pray to scale.
Yeah, I think the big thing about the tools that you bring up, the Buster Shot and the Emperor's Divide, like these tools are best used against point-and-click gap closures. Like up against the Alistar, you use it, he's thrown away, and suddenly he has to wait 10 seconds to try and get back in or commit his flash. But TSM Academy, Hanser is unstoppable during Paranoia. Babip is unstoppable during the Onslaught. Galio isn't even touchable during his ultimate, right? Like, you can't hit these guys with these abilities until they're already on top of you, and that's where the issue comes through. They have enough crowd control and enough damage that you might never be able to use these reactive tools. And Zeus, I mean, we saw how they were able to play a macro game really effectively last time. Now, they also have to show us that they can play these team fights well.
So now hitting the Rift in game number 2 of the LCS Proving Grounds. Let us know in chat who you think is going to win. Will it be TSM or will it be Zeus? I can't get over the whole one of these logos is not like the other every time I look at the bottom of my screen and just see Zeus toilet paper cat.
Yep. Shout out to Why You Know Doctor for providing this for the team. He's still really sad that it's actually part of the broadcast because it's like, come on guys, come up with something better than this. I threw this together in a couple of minutes, but the Zeus players like it. They're still going with it. And now, they are currently loading into Game 2 on the Rift. They are looking to take down TSM Academy here. And I'm kind of trying to think about how these lanes are supposed to play out. And they kind of seem like washes across the board. Like, Azir is good into Galio, right? It's hard to really punish the Azir as the Galio. The top lane, like, Olorm is unlikely to die and is probably going to be farming under turret, so Hunter will have some priority, but that's not the biggest thing in the world until he gets level 6. And in the bottom lane, Rhino and Yurson are kind of just preventing each other from doing anything. Both these champions so good at countering the other's engage that it's going to be hard for either of them to find an advantage.
That being said, though, Rhino is a little bit more, I was going to say punishable, but then Yurson goes in not having level 2 and gets hella punished for it, so just scratch that one completely. If you get the right scenario onto Rhino, he can be heavily punished, whereas you're a little bit more flexible with the Alistair.
Yeah, for sure. You have a lot of opportunities for both these to try and be aggressive. And right now, I think both these junglers are kind of playing to that, right? Like, RBM is full clearing his side of the map, whereas Babip kind of shifting it away, right? You're looking at Babip now skipping his own Krugs in order to try and be at these Scuttle Crabs a little bit faster, whereas RBM is going to be full clearing, and you're going to see that he's going to have an opportunity to try and play for the bottom side Scuttle Crab based on the disastrous level 1 trade from Yurson and the fact that he currently has no potions anymore. But otherwise, like, this game, likely to be very even as we walk into the mid game, and TSM, again, playing a composition that is more active at that time than Zeus, and I feel like we're at a kind of similar game plan, at least in terms of, like, time and, like, when you're strong coming out from TSM, but they got to make sure they get to that point with a lead, or even.
I don't know. What I'm just looking for is the dives. Even if they do go even, I just want to see TSM make those dives, man. They were doing it in game number 1. Their team comp complements that playstyle so much more now, so I'm going to be watching Babip closely. I'm going to be seeing if he goes for the similar plays, if he tries to go after Alorum, which he's still a tanky boy, maybe not the best lane to go after, but there's a lot he can really do on this map for setup once the level 6 point does come up.
Yeah, this is big. RVM, because he's just a faster clearer as the Lilia compared to the Hecarim. Notably, like, Babip on this Hecarim is a little bit slower than it used to be due to the reduced damage on the Rampage. So you're not getting as much damage off these Qs over and over. RBM actually has a pretty good idea of what path it is that his opponent took and recognizes he's a camp ahead. He's going to be seeing that Babip is going to be probably skipping the Krugs again, just going bottom to top and potentially looking to gank this top lane in about a minute and a half. So Alorum now has a pretty good timer on when it is he needs to be playing back and just trying to hold this lane in a spot where he's not potentially going to be dove under turret, and RBM, now on the side of the map, could potentially look for a fight before Babip is ready.
And you did see the pings come out on the minimap right now. They're trying to scout out exactly where RBM is.
There he
but
is.
Now looking at the bot lane, here comes the engagement. So much damage onto Raheen. It was beautiful from Yorson. And it's a kill going over to TSM in the early.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those things that we're looking at. It's supposed to be a bit of a wash, but Rhino is getting a little bit outplayed. Yurson finds a super small opening, gets the kill onto Raheen, and now that's going to upset the rest of the map. When somebody loses in their lane without jungler intervention, it's a lot harder to make plays. You know, things in League of Legends aren't supposed to come for free, but Babip up here on the top side doesn't even have to look for a play now. RBM is just like, well, My bot lane ended up dying, and there's nothing I can really get for it. So we'll take a look at it again, and it just comes in. Rhino off on the side, isn't in his spot. Like, he gets the stun on Yurson, but it's too late in order for him to find any success.
Raheem's a little bit green, and, you know, sometimes you learn the hard way. Yurson really quick to try and punish that one, and great success to come. Now we're seeing a rotation come out of Zeus, realizing the backs did come in from TSM, looking to get a little bit of vision while they have some time to just roam around on this map before that bot lane comes back.
See what they're actually able to do. We're starting to see some pings towards this first dragon of the game, and again, if Zeus is able to pick up the first one, that'll be very helpful in giving them more time to scale. So the extra 5 minutes, very big. Yurson has no flash.
In the headbutt to stop Rhino.
Galio.
A lot of damage onto Yurson, but here comes the hero's entrance. 4 members strong will be TSM as they head over to the bot lane. But Bip gets caught out. It's Rhino getting caught out, excuse me, and slain by Cody's son. But Bip still on the hunt, looking for RBM, but RBM is far enough away and fine to be able to see another day. But the early start is looking beautiful from TSM. Can they keep up this momentum?
Yeah, this is really big. This is TSM playing towards their game plan. This is them identifying their win conditions in playing towards this bottom lane at this point, with the fact that you have 2 semi-globals on top half of the map. And Zeus, I'm not sure what they're doing here. They're looking to be wisely backing away. Or are they?
And here comes another engagement from Yurson. Gets a knock-up on RBM in the flank. Able to get the double ton. Emperor's Divide. Might turn this one around, though. 5 strong is going to be Zeus.
Sword.
As the dinner bell is rang. Raheen will be able to grab that plate. Now looking for a little bit more. Can they grab a Bip? The answer might be no here. Still swinging through his RBM. He's got quite a bit of movement speed, but so does Bip. So Zeus able to grab a kill in that last fight.
This is another one of those situations where the proactive play, the aggressive proactive play, typically going to be better than the defensive one, right? They're able to recognize that Sword is going for this flank, and Dark Wings, I mean, we also talked about it. The Emperor's Divide is way better against these gap closers that can be interrupted. You saw he knocked away Babip in the middle of that fight, and suddenly there's no threat onto Dark Wings. He and Raheen are able to free hit, and that's one of those big things that we talked about. If Zeus don't die to the initial burst, they're better in these fights.
So good retaliation coming out from Zeus. Still very early in this game, only about 700 gold separating these teams. As Zeus trying to establish their presence onto the map, you see they're getting more and more wards over towards the river. Next big contested objective should be the Rift Herald.
Yeah. See what they end up going for. One other thing I want to highlight about that last fight is the difference in effectiveness between Nocturne's teleport and Scion's teleport. We'll get back to that as RBM just fighting.
Paranoia is going to be used. Will get the fear, but the smash will find the knock-up and punish the daylights out of Hanser. RBM grabs the kill, and, well, if you wanted to set up for Rift Herald, I guess this is the way to do it. Just kill the top laner.
Yep. Unfortunately, Hanser only has 1 spell shield. He was able to stop a little bit of the damage, but he blocked neither Scion's Q nor RBM's sleep, and ends up taking all of the damage that comes along with those. And we'll see how that affects the rest of the map. Again, when the jungler is involved, you know that you can try and do something on the opposite side of the map. Babip now a little bit more free to try and take away some camps, maybe look for a dive, and we're starting to see members come down. Sword doesn't have ult, but this is what we're really looking for from the side of TSM. See if you can get this man advantage, use your heavy dive in order to push around the backline, and now they know RBM is here, and that might dissuade them from doing anything more than grabbing a plate.
And the fact that Darkwing's backed up as well, he does have teleport, so he could show up to that fight quite quickly. They don't know where he is. They know he can be there, so TSM not willing to go for this one. Instead, just going to back off. It is a bit of time wasted, but Zeus still playing the map very carefully.
Yeah, and we're seeing the big difference between the Galio and the Azir as well, as we're starting to see that Darkwing is jumping up to about a 2.5 wave advantage currently. Is Galio wants to leave the lane, right? Galio, you know, he's not a bad laner, but he's not going to be having a lot of opportunities to punish Azir in particular. And so he's trying to use that to run around the map, get a little bit of priority. Darkwings can't really follow, right? He's going to lose a lot of these duels if he doesn't have access to his turret to retreat back to. So he can't really do anything. Instead, just like, well, you're going to do that. I'm going to push this lane in, crash into your turret, get a little bit of damage on the tower. More importantly, continue to farm and be safe in my lane. And so we're starting to see this difference coming through. Big gold lead likely to be going over to Darkwings in the near future, provided that Sword isn't able to find another successful roam. And as you called out earlier, Eric, coalescing around the Herald, all 5 members of Zeus are here first. That should highlight to TSM. Let's go hit the bottom lane turret and hopefully get enough compensation for picking up this objective.
Yeah, that's what I was watching right there. Cody Sun and Yursan just really staying down towards that bot lane area to collect in those plates. And Cody Sun could do a lot of great things once he has that gold. Again, we called him one of the safest players in this league. So let's see if he can cash in and start finding some effect for TSM when it comes to the bot lane.
Yeah. You got to think about Herald in terms of like what it does. Like, what does Herald do? Obviously, Josh, you just crash into a turret, it takes 2 plates, and you get 300 gold from that. They gave up 4 plates now in order to grab that. It's a negative gold play. They have to actually try and take a turret and lure him. And he's still Scion, right? Like, you're not diving him with these 2 champions. And we'll see how much Zeus gets out of this full rotation of sending everybody up towards the top side of the map. Is your son? Oh, he's going in. Okay.
Yeah, they're going right after Alorum, but here comes the teleport. Alorum should be able to find some safety. Decimating Smash doesn't find its mark. Onslaught Shadows onto Alorum, pushes him away from his tower. Hero's Entrance coming in, looking to find the taunt. Emperor's Divide goes out. Alorum still critically low, but still alive. Just barely gets clipped by the Feather Storm, and 4 members committed to that engage. They only pick up 1 kill, but look at the top side, Joshi.
Yeah, we see this big trade coming through. Despite the fact that the kill goes over to TSM, they need to find this turret as well. Darkwings might get out.
Darkwings trying to find his way out. Gets pushed back in and bullied away from that tower. TSM realized they need to pick something up, and they need to pick it up soon to equalize this, but Zeus are just not going to let him.
Right, this is the thing about Zeus that they're able to do. Alorum overplayed his hand a little bit there, but they played the macro better. They moved around, they got 2 turrets off of that, and they got the compensation with the Herald that they gave up in the bottom lane. Yeah, Cody Sun picks up a lot of gold, but Raheen also way richer after all is said and done. In the gold, currently only about 500 between the 2 teams. The big thing that we got to pay attention to, 1, TSM well on track to be picking up this Infernal Soul in about 10 minutes. They should definitely get this next dragon. They will be stronger at that point in the game. But the real question comes, is Zeus going to be in a spot where they are going to be strong enough to consistently win fights when the next dragon rolls around? And Alorum, like, he sees Yursan tanking a couple of these turrets, and he's like, oh, I can kill this guy. Overplays a little bit. But this is a situation where you don't necessarily have to do that. Right? Like, you can play to just withstand the dive, and you probably do so, right? They were so close to doing it. Imagine if Alorum had his flash still. Right? They probably just live.
And then it's an outright punish because you lose all those structures on the top side.
Exactly.
So great play to come out so far. Zeus very smart with the macro, the way they've been around the map. And TSM, they're trying to find their footing. They're kind of there, but another thing you got to keep in mind is where this gold is allocated. It's all onto Cody Sun, which is a good thing and a bad thing. A good thing in the fact that you have it on the carry. A bad thing on the fact that if he gets picked out, that is pretty much your team fight gone.
True. It's also a little bit sad that it's not onto someone like Hanser or Babip, because they're the ones who are going to be diving into Raheen, right? We already talked about how team fights are looking to shape up. You're looking to dive into the Azir and the Tristana and prevent them from doing DPS. And there's not a lot of tools coming out from Zeus to really get to Cody Sun during these team fights. 1, he's Zaya. 2, he has a Gale Force. And 3, what dive tools do you really have? So, you know, Cody Sun should be very happy with this position for himself. The question will be, Raheen suddenly has a Kraken Slayer. He is ahead of the curve compared to Hanser, Babip, Sword, and Yursan, and he will be slightly better able to withstand these upcoming dives when we start seeing fights. We might see one in 3 minutes. Zeus might think that they're strong enough, but it's going to be at best when they actually start playing for this dragon.
And, you know, as I said, a lot of that gold being on Cody Sun. Cody Sun, he plays safe. He's got great positioning. He should be able to utilize it quite well. We'll see if he can utilize it in the next team fight. Now the gold's starting to even up as pushing forward is Zeus. Getting a lot of that forward vision towards the river, towards the enemy side of the jungle. You can see right there, spotting out exactly where Babip and Cody Sun is. Really watching that pathing is going to give enough leeway for Alorum to realize how far he can go in that lane.
Yeah, we see. He's actually ahead of Haunter. Ha He's ahead of Haunter. I didn't even think about that, right? He is even or ahead. This is what we were saying, like this Haunter Nocturne, or I guess Nocturne just in general is like, he's not a great laning champion. Like, he's not bad, but he just tries to push out the wave and get priority so that he can move around the map. We didn't really see him leave his lane a whole lot, but he's got the Stride Breaker now, and we're really going to see this Nocturne make or break in the next real team fight, right? He either gets a kill, gets some gold, starts putting people behind, and snowballs the game from there, or he's past his prime, right? Like, the Nocturne is not going to have an opportunity to be as impactful later on when more peel tools are becoming available. And so as we look at the clock, 90 seconds left before the dragon spawns. Haunter now level 11, will be getting a little bit more burst. Paranoia will still be effective as a vision denial tool. But you already look at this and say, Nocturne could have ulted like 3 or 4 times by the 16-minute mark if he had been doing that on cooldown.
Yeah, you're not getting that much utilization out of the Nocturnal, which is pretty disappointing to me. I was getting excited for these TSM dives. The Zoos aren't giving them a chance to be able to set it up, but they might find something right here. TSM starting to posture up towards the mid lane. They are sending Sword somewhat in the river, just in a spot where he could flex quite easily if he needs to go down there. Yursan coming on the flank, just clearing out the control ward. But it does give TSM priority over towards the Rift Herald if they want to try and set that up themselves. But again, it's Zoos you have to get through. Rel works really well in those very closed corridors where you can't get the ultimate in. No rhyme intended.
Well, works really well. Ooh woo. Anyway, one of the things that I really want to be seeing a little bit more, we saw that there were 3 members of Zeus in the mid lane there, right? You know, Nocturnal does a lot of things. It allows you to dive onto back lane, but the other big thing it does is it prevents Zeus from teleporting, right? Dark Wings cannot teleport in. Alarm cannot teleport in. So you actually have a period of, normally you have like 3 or 4 seconds for the teleport to complete. You actually have about 7 seconds of 5v3 in League of Legends when you go for these plays if you just try and dive the turret, because neither Alarm nor Darkwings can join, and because they're slow to the punch, Zeus walk away with this dragon.
Paranoia goes out, and so does the Onslaught of Shadows, going straight for that backline. Heroes entrance will find Darkwing. 1 down for Zeus. TSM looking to find their fight. Raheen has to flash away, but Rhino cannot escape. It's going to be a double kill going over to Haunter. And TSM, they got 2 unanswered kills. It's looking good now. They're able to find the momentum.
Normally I'd say go for the Baron, but it's 18 minutes. Zeus are happy with this, right? Even though they lose another turret here. Wait, did they find Haunter?
Are they going to find him? Haunter might find it the other way around. Now Babip,
nice.
Buster's shot used beautifully to stop Babip from going and committing onto that kill, and Alorum just being the bodyguard for the ADC.
Nice. I mean, this is what we were saying before, right? Zoos are not ready to take these fights. And they should know this. They don't have a whole lot of items on Darklings. They don't have a whole lot on Raheem. And while this fight goes plausibly quite well, right, you see that Raheem is able to get out and stay alive. And even though he doesn't get a lot of damage down, he ends up walking away from this. The big thing about this is about how we were expecting these team fights to be going at this point in time. You're looking at TSM to have a team fight advantage. But Zeus, they're not happy about the fact that they lost a couple of kills, but they're very happy about the fact that they pick up this first Infernal Dragon. They stop TSM at 2 dragons. Zeus' opportunities to take these fights are going to get better in the future as Azir and Tristana get more range and do more damage later on. And they sacrifice about 2,000 gold to do it. So 5 minutes, 2,000 gold, it's not as stark of a difference as we might initially look, but Zeus now need to just make sure they're preventing TSM from picking up the Baron for free. They need to make sure that they are defending their structure so that they don't fall too far behind, because the clock is ticking for TSM. They need to continue to find plays. They need to continue diving with this Nocturne, who now has 2 kills. And picking up this Herald is a great way to start going about that. Now they can start to look to pressure the turrets and just dive alongside the Herald.
And keep that gold lead coming. Now have the Herald. It looks like they want to pop it over towards the top side. Be able to take down that tower. No more plates, so we'll just be cashing in on the gold. But Alorum's headed up there as well, so TSM might not be too savvy to throw this down right now, but there it is. Shelly's going to be used. Should get a good juicy charge, and Alorum just backing off for the time being, and you can see why. TSM already starting rotation towards that top side.
Yeah, they have more people here first. Old lead about 3,000, and this is at the spot where it might be enough for TSM to actually close out the game. It's really borderline. If it was a little bit larger, they get 4,000 gold ahead, suddenly becomes a lot more doable. Now, it's still execution. They still need to find these fights, and RBM, as he walks up, remember, Darkwings and Alorum can't join through the paranoia. They can't get to the fights. This is an opportunity to potentially start looking at Azir, at this Tristana, while you have this opportunity where Zoos can't bring their full team comp to bear.
That being said, though, you do have one little fault in TSM's composition. It's very R-dependent. If Zeus can get a window where the Nocturne ult's down, where the hero's entrance is down, they have a huge window to be able to make a play on the map. Now, the question is, are you going to catch TSM slipping up like that? Because they've been very reserved about using these ultimates.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, right? It makes you think of the situation with Blitzcrank in the bottom lane, where not throwing the hook can be better than actually throwing it, right? Because, like, if you use it and whiff, suddenly you're just, like, not really a champion in the lane. You don't have any pressure. You got a couple melee range auto techs that you can throw out. And this is kind of that, right? Like, TSM not using their ultimates. Well, I think that they could be going for these quote-unquote Blitzcrank hooks with a bit more activity, and they would actually have a higher success rate than they might otherwise expect. Just having it means that Zoos aren't comfortable making plays. They can't really move out as long as these ultimates are up. So TSM playing this in a very different style. They're playing this, you know, smorky kind of comp of just hitting phase and saying, you know, I think we're actually the control team here. I don't know if I agree with them, but it's what they're doing.
Look at this. Yersan over the wall. Almost bumps into Rhino. And yeah, they are doing that. They're holding a lot of control. And one of the things that I actually just noticed was we are an Infernal map. And that gives Bupip so many different ways to enter these fights with the Onslaught of Shadows. We kind of saw it with that one fight around Dragon where he just came out from the wings and wreaked havoc onto that back line.
Yeah. Alright, gotta bring it up again, because I hadn't really thought about it, and I'm sure somebody in Twitch chat is like, oh, I can't believe you guys haven't talked about this. Zoos can itemize armor, and now they can't join, I got the dive!
And here we go, Emperor's Divide does go out, try to run away as Darkwings, but he is caught out for so long. It will be Raheen, the first one to fall. Now the fight's going to continue going golden as RBM, but it's going to be a double kill going off to Sword. Here comes the charge. Alorum showing up. Babip on the backside. Darkwings gets pushed in, but now wants to jump back in. Rhino slowly making his way over towards the remains of his squad mates, but the tower will fall. TSM Academy will pick up the net win.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Alorum took so long to join that fight, and even though, again, it wasn't the cleanest dive in the world, TSM have extra members, and it is enough in order to grab them 2 kills, as well as this Infernal Dragon. So Zeus now pushed up against the wall, and this is, I think, becoming a big enough lead for TSM to try and take it. Now they shift their attention to the top half of the map, and it should be... Okay, scared me a little bit. The observer's just like, hey, check this guy out. He's super low hitting the Krugs. Does he die? Does he die? No, he's fine. Stop scaring me like that.
We've seen stranger things happen. And
yeah, but look at this. Watch when Alorum jumps in, right? Teleport comes through proactively from Darkwings, and Paranoia goes off now. Where's Alorum?
I don't know. I can't find him. Marco Polo.
Oh, he started teleporting. The fight's over. Right? This is what this composition can do. You deny these side laners from actually doing anything. Darkwings tried to teleport proactively to contest the dragon. But Alorum, and this isn't necessarily against Alorum, this is just like how this composition works, right? This is what TSM can do, and from this point forward, you know, it opens up opportunities for TSM to split push more proactively because Zeus can't afford to let that play happen again.
But it's very, very difficult when TSM are in a spot where they can just continue pushing forward with their vision. And that vision is very, very critical for this comp to work. It allows them those, like, split-second engages where you catch someone out in the jungle and everyone can follow through.
Whoa.
Zeus, however, What is this? They're posturing up towards the mid lane, but you can see a lot of members of TSM over towards the top side looking to just pretty much backdoor this tower.
This is weird. Now they have a good idea of where everybody is. They see that Cody-san is here. They haven't spotted anybody, so they might just jump to this bush. No, they just go out.
Now here we go. Onslaught of Shadows goes out. The fear is there. Hero's entrance finds the knock up, and down goes Dark Wings. Decimating smash from Alorum, trying to deal with Sword and protect Raheen. Raheen gets a lot of damage in. Can he find more and take down Sword? Answer's going to be yes. Finds the shutdown as well. But Raheen's running low. Rhino even lower as he falls to his grave. Decimating smash goes through, only knocks up the cow, but Cody-san is there to try and find the punish. And it's going to be a 1-for-2 exchange, once again benefiting TSM.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about, though. There are 0 ults. There is no access to Raheen, so this is actually very contestable for Zeus. They're moving everybody over, and Hanser just has to hit the front line.
On here comes Babip, trying to run on in. Alorum still trying to be that tanky boy, but Raheen can do nothing. He cannot provide the damage against 4 members. He cannot put himself in that type of risk. That being said, though, Alorum did delay the Baron a bit. Let's see if TSM want to continue to try and start that up. Instead, they're going to peel off.
Yeah, that's kind of enough. But the big thing is we are seeing the success cases coming out for TSM. They are doing what their comp is designed to do. They are threatening this backline. They are making sure that they can dive really heavily. And it's becoming very difficult for Zeus to actually live. They don't have enough peel. They don't have enough tools to keep their backline alive. And we'll see it. Darkwings dies immediately in this fight. He is crowd controlled this entire time. He did not have an opportunity to do anything other than press R through that entire period. And while crowd control a lot of people off on the side, Raheen isn't able to get enough damage down at this point in the map. Rhino has already done everything he could, ends up dying, and we're seeing again why this composition from TSM that can dive so heavily, why I was so excited to see the Galio coming through as their last pick, is having success. And now, 1 dragon away from Soul. Baron is on the table. TSM can start looking for a fight and taking us to a game 3.
And every time Zeus are able to get themselves back into position to try and take a fight, the ultimates are back up and Alorum is caught out. 4 of TSM standing right on top of him to guarantee another kill and to set up their advantage further ahead. But Zeus going to respond by going straight after this Baron. Sword is there to try and distract them, but the rest of TSM, they will not be able to get here in time. 6k remains, still running through is Babip. He's trying to put on the charge. He's trying to get into the team fight. And here comes the paranoia over the wall. Baron does go over to Zeus, but the lives of Zeus are going over to TSM. RBM, the only one to survive. He's the only one with Baron. And you can tell right now that TSM Academy want to make sure there's no more Barons left on the map, as coming from the flank is going to be Yursan, trying to find the headbutt pulverize. Will be able to score as Babip rushes through. A slither of health remains, and there is the ace. TSM Academy come in big.
This is such a well-executed plan coming out from TSM. They spot Alorum. He's not even that far out. He gets caught, he loses the Baron, and now it's going to be the Infernal Soul going over to TSM as well. We thought their dive was good before. It is way better now. Zeus is now in a terrible spot from this game, and I like the attempt on the Baron, but they just don't do enough damage to it quite yet. And giving over everything to TSM means that we are in a spot where these two teams are going to have another showdown in Game 3, and I'm so excited, right? Game plan from TSM doesn't work Game 1, works amazingly Game 2. Zeus needs to find an opportunity to respond, because now they're the ones who are going to have to adapt to this new style that TSM has just shown.
We said TSM can adapt, and they have so far. Taking another look at that Baron play, because Zeus really committed to this, but it pretty much cost them everything.
Yeah, I mean, this is a DPS check. Like, do you guys have the damage against this neutral objective to kill it before TSM get there? And with Sword around, the answer just became no. The taunt stopped the damage for a long time, and they might have been able to get more people out if they were able to kill it, right? You just hop over the wall as Azir, you hop over the wall as Tristana. Suddenly, you get both of your DPS members with the Baron still on them. But at this point, fights are so hard, right? Zeus have a lot of DPS between their two major damage sources, but they're not going to be able to survive the incoming damage from TSM. A Rabadon's now completed on Sword in order to make sure they can kill whoever he wants.
You can See Zeus just trying to hold the line, trying to get whatever they can to keep them in this game, but it's looking oh so done. Joshi now rotating over towards the bot side will be TSM, still keeping Sword towards the top side of the lane, and they're looking to destroy that final inner tower and start sieging more and more as those super minions start heading into the base of Zeus.
See what they can do. Olorum got to be very careful as the turret goes down. Cody Sun quietly 6-0-1. 4 items completed on his Zaya. TSM looking to bring every lane at the same time. So this is good macro play coming out from TSM. Remember, Darkwings can't join. There's only one opportunity for them to do anything. They're going to have to look to be aggressive, pick somebody out before they start, and it's easiest to attack the globals in these situations. So Zeus, back against the wall. What do they do?
Find out as TSM march towards the base. They're knocking on the door. Over the wall comes Babip. That looked like...
Well, not
was
that.
that Raheen using the blast plant?
I don't know. It looked like Babip. Okay, Darkwings.
Ooh, good use of the hourglass there, but the taunt's going to come out, and they are going to be able to catch Darkwings. Now Raheen going to join the fray, getting a couple of autos in, knowing that those ultimates are down, but cannot chase enough, because members of TSM are knocking in the bot lane, in the top lane, in the mid lane. There is just too much for Zeus to be able to handle.
Yeah, it is looking like it, Eric. We got a lot of people bringing the top wave in. Now they're just looking for a last fight.
And here we go, looking for the tower dive. Underneath the tower, Onslaught Shadows goes out as Babip tries to find that backline once again. Hero's entrance is gonna annihilate Zeus. There's not much left for them to do than to start planning out this next draft, but you can see RBM, he's trying his hardest right now. They're putting up the defense of a lifetime. You can't stop the momentum that TSM had and keep pushing through as they destroy the base of Zeus in one of the most vicious comeback games I've ever seen, Joshi.
This was good. This was very good from TSM, very controlled, and I think they could have been a little bit more aggressive, but they just didn't need to, and now, oh my god, he's just dead. They're both just dead. I didn't even see, like Cody said, was just killing Darkwings on the other side of that. This is one of these games that makes you look at TSM and reminds us why these guys have so much success historically, why these guys have had 3 of their members go to Worlds, and I think this is way more exciting now that both of these teams are looking to be aggressive. Both of them are looking to make plays, and TSM's early aggression going up against Zeus' willingness to scale has finally been put to the test as we start looking at a Game 3.
I mean, Game 1, it was the same exact game plan, but a different draft. Now that they're able to collect that draft and put it into play with the game plan that they wanted, my goodness, Joshi. My goodness, those were some dives. We expected dives. We got a lot of dives.
Yeah, and I thought it was so cool. Again, right, like, I did not find the draft particularly exciting until exactly Galio as their last pick. This is a huge difference coming out from TSM. Sword is going to be was a much more supportive player in that kind of game. He was able to follow up on everybody else making these big plays and didn't feel like he needed to be the big guy to start the fights off, and it was a recipe for success. So, Zeus, they tried to play scaling comps 2 games in a row. One of them worked, one of them really didn't. So we'll see where they're going to be trying to go. Are they going to try and play scaling again, or are they going to try and contest TSM in some of these early game skirmishes?
I mean, we've seen that Zeus can do the early game micro pretty well when it comes to some of those fights. So I don't want to count Zeus out. It was nice for TSM to adapt, but I'm pretty sure Zeus can find an adaptation as well and not allow that combo of the Nocturne and Galio to go through. The question is, what do TSM draft if they're unable to get those champions? Can they still create a composition that can create that kind of dive?
It's a good question, right? Like, you really need a couple of those champions, the Nocturne, the Hecarim, the Galio, in order to make that composition work. If you lose specifically the Galio, I think it becomes a lot harder to make that exact composition work a second time. So we'll see. Zeus has been on red side twice. I wonder if we're going to be getting that to change up a little bit, which would drastically change any of the drafts that we look at.
We're going to find out in a bit. We're going to throw it over to short break. When we return, we'll have more LCS Proving Grounds with this amazing matchup we've been going through so far, TSM versus Zeus. We will be right back.